What's up, friends? It's been a minute. I it's been busy over here. So I haven't streamed in a couple of weeks. Today I'm actually doing a short one because in a couple of hours here I'm actually going to get a tattoo. So it's just let's party a little bit, have a little bit of fun, see what we can get done. Let me make a couple quick announcements because I'm not even sure if this one ended up on the schedule today. Like I said, it's been a little wild. What's everybody been up to? How are you all? What is going on? What's up, Kushal? What's up, V Dog? How you doing? Yeah, let me drop a note on the Discord to let people know that things are indeed happening. Whoops. Get a shareable link. There we go. All right. So, what's everybody up to? What's everybody doing? What's up? How you doing? I'm good. I'm feeling good. It's been, like I said, it's been really busy. It's been busy in the right ways. Like, I feel like there are two types of busy. There's busy because you're scrambling because you can't figure out exactly how to make something work or how to make things fit, or you've sort of got the basis of an idea, but you're not quite there in terms of actually getting all the dots to connect. And then there's busy where you found something that works and it's getting a lot of people interested in and wanting to be a part of it. And so you just find that your calendar is really full. You've got lots of projects, and so very fortunately for me, I'm in the latter where I feel like I have a lot happening. It's all stuff that I want to be happening, but it's also just a lot, which is all very exciting. I've got a lot of companies reaching out. They want to work with me. I've got projects coming up that I'm really excited about. I got to do things that I didn't really ever think I'd get a chance to do. Like I worked on an actual film production crew for there's this thing called the 48-hour film festival. I did the Portland version of that, which is great, but also, like, you want to talk about throwing your sleep schedule off. It was 48 hours of, like, we got our prompt on a Friday at 6 p.m. and at 3 a.m. on Saturday I had like one line in the movie, so I was shooting my lines, shooting my one scene at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, and then on Sunday they do all the edits, and it takes a while to get recovered after something like that. What's up, Michael? How you doing? Tomorrow's your exam. What's your exam? What's up, Bridgewater? How you doing? But so then, in addition to, like, doing the 48 and stuff, I've been real lucky that this web dev challenge is working the way that it's working. We've got some really interesting stuff coming up. It's not quite time to talk about it yet, but we'll just say roadshow. So interesting stuff is coming. We're trying to work on that. I've got a new idea that I figured out the right model to make it fun and sponsorable. So I'm gonna be going on my campaigning tour, trying to get companies involved in that. And then I'm also trying to upgrade my set for the Web Dev Challenge. So I've got, like, really cool designs. In fact, let's see, is it cool if I show these? It's probably cool if I show. You know what? I can do whatever I want. I'm an adult. So why don't we? Yeah, let's take a look at them. I'll show you what I'm cooking up here on the for the Web Dev Challenge. Let me get some stuff off this main screen before I start sharing things. Just close you entirely, and then we're gonna see what happens. Hey, Preston, thank you very much. Yeah, more on the way. We've got, let's see, we dropped, what was it, episode 5 dropped, so we've got another 4, potentially 5 this year. So that's very exciting, and we're gonna hopefully, yeah, they'll be dropping every 3 weeks. So, we had one last week. We'll have another in a couple weeks here on, what's the next day? The 9th. That one's really fun. You're gonna enjoy that. You're gonna see a couple familiar faces on it. Yeah, really, really good time there. Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and please, I really hope that y'all are if you're not taking part in the actual hackathon, which let me share a link to the hackathon, where we have, there's folks in the Discord who are kind of monitoring it to help out in case you want to have, if you want to build. While you're building, you have access to the pros at, for this one, it's Clerk, Convex, and Raycast. If you want to talk to their teams are hanging out, ready to answer questions. You've got access to, like I'm in there, some of the devs from the show are in there, and these are like well-connected people. So it's a good opportunity to build up your portfolio, to build up your network, to get practice working on something that is, a small scope, like 4 hours. Can you fit that in a couple nights after work? Can you fit it in on a weekend if you don't have plans? To just kind of give yourself a chance to do something that doesn't have to be big. It can be small and still be cool. And it's a chance to learn some new tech. It's a chance to win some rewards. We've got things like, there's keyboards. I got some custom posters made, all sorts of cool stuff going on that you can get for participating in the hackathon. And even if you don't do the hackathon, like just have some fun making this stuff. I think it's a good time. Started learning Golang, dope. What keyboard is this? This is the Moonlander. So you can see it's got the flap for the wrist, and then it's got all the different keys and stuff. And then this side, I've got one of the thumb keys is missing. That's really exciting. So I don't push that button. But I really like this keyboard. It's been really good for my wrist health. Yeah, and I get it. Like if you're too busy, don't feel any guilt. I don't want this to be something that adds to the pressure on you. I just think that if you are looking to build your network, build your portfolio, this is a good opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and it's whatever's right time for you. And if there's never a right time, then sometimes you got to make it a right time. All right, Matt. Yeah, Matt has done the hackathon before. Did some cool stuff. Excited to see what you come up with this time. Which monitor do I use? I typically use it's the BenQ. You know what? I'm just going to link. I have all the gear that I use listed, and I'm just going to put it on. I'm going to put it up for everybody to look at because, anyways, it's a good. I love those monitors. The BenQ ones are really good. Do I use QWERTY? I use QWERTY. It's a split keyboard. It's ortholinear, so it's a little different. But I use it. I'm QWERTY. Thank you. Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this thing. So I will switch over to sharing my screen. And the way I do that is I click this button here, and then I share my screen. There we go. All right. And like I said, today is going to be a little bit on the shorter side. I'm going to stream for about another hour and 15 minutes. So if you do have questions, you got something you want to talk about, please let me know. But then I'm gonna take off and go get myself tattooed. So all right. So let's look at this new set that I'm trying to get built. If I can figure out how. Let's see. This is not a program that I usually use. This is something that my friend Matt Howard designed this space, and so I am trying to use the 3D viewer that he uses, and let's see if I can figure it out. Okay, so so this is what my studio looks like. You can see here, like you kind of come in through here, and then it just opens up into a big space. I've got a little kitchenette here. This is the bathroom. This is like a conference room. This is quite literally a hallway to nowhere. This is my storage closet. And then I have an office mate here this is their office. So this is where I am right now. I'm sitting in this spot right here. This is the wall behind me. You can see, so this is all at an angle. And that's how I kind of, I don't know, I just built the space this way. Uh, but so what we want to do right now, the way the Web Dev Challenge is set up is the desks are sitting out here. And then we have like a couch and a couple chairs and a TV on a rolling rack here. So I want to make this feel more like intentional, you know? And the way that you make a space feel intentional is almost always with good art direction and set design. My friend Matt designs spaces for like he's done retail stores for Nike. He's worked on a bunch of spots, and he does really good work. So he was down to help me kind of think through this. And so this is sort of what we're starting to kick around is how we want to make this work. So you might recognize, if you've seen the Web Dev Challenge before, you might recognize the general angles here. But this is the whiteboard up front where we have people giving the presentations, but we want to get a custom ticker built up here so that we can do like basically a digital ticker. And then the desks still where they usually are. But then we want to build this wall and do like an effect wall here. This is a logo I designed for the Web Dev Challenge. Then we have, this is another angle, and you can see kind of how this starts to pull things together. You don't have, like right now when you see the show, if there's a wide shot, you can kind of see like stands and some of the other set of this set in the background, and all that kind of going. So then, yeah, tight on the board. What else do we got here? So then as you start to turn the other way, you can see that there are, all right, I can move this, I forgot. So you can kind of see like how this all fits, wider space like that. So we've kind of got curtains dividing the space that I'm in now from the space where we do Web Dev Challenge. And then this will be like a slatted wood wall with a little effect thing on it. And then as you look out the other way, you can kind of see like these windows are in the building. They've kind of always ended up in the background of shots. I like them. I don't want to lose them. I like the light from them. But then we need a place for the advisors to hang out. So kind of setting up a little loungy area here, having another curtain dividing the space. And then once we'd be able to pull this curtain back, and we would have an actual demo space. So instead of the couch that we have now, which that couch is good to look at, but it's so deep, and whenever somebody gets into it, like you kind of get swallowed by it. So it's difficult to sit in. It's it's really easy to lounge in. It's hard to like sit in, and it's I don't really like. It's not very flattering to sit in. The other chairs are fine, but they, I don't know. There's a lot of issues. And then I really don't like that the TV is on a rolling stand. I don't like that the presenters are sitting down. So I want to level this up, right? And so I want to have a podium. I want to get a wall built where we can mount the TV. And then this would just kind of like help build out the space to be more complete. And then, we'll get this kind of riser thing built here, which I'm really excited about, so that everybody has a place to sit. We can stagger people, give it a little bit of, visual height and interest. And then that also allows me to do these different kind of shots, like tight on the speaker. You can get really tight on the speaker. You can get tight on the audience, or you have the ability to go wide. So when we're setting up and filming, we'll actually have the ability to do this. Right now, we have a lot of shots that go over somebody's shoulder. And I like that in certain cases, but in the demos, I don't really want to be shooting the back of somebody's head when they're talking. I want to be looking at everybody so you can see who's talking, what they're saying, all those good things. And that is what we're trying to do. But so here's the thing about this. When you start doing these sorts of things, it is very expensive. And so another project that I'm kicking off right now is I'm attempting to find companies that would want to team up with me on this and like sponsor the build out of the space, because what I'm thinking I'll do is I'll actually have this ticker, because this spends a lot of time in shot, right? And so I'm going to try to get companies to sponsor the space in exchange for like basic, the way that like when you go to an arena, it's like the Moda Center or the Coca-Cola arena or whatever. I'm thinking about trying to do a similar thing where you'd be able to brand this ticker, and that would be done in exchange for helping me pay for the build out. Right? That's sort of that's the general thought here. So let's see. A tattoo that is wonderful. I absolutely love that. Oh, if you don't mind getting a little meta, could you talk about your streaming setup and contrast it to your setup when you first started streaming? Sure. So my streaming setup, actually, yeah, this is worth talking about because I am many years into this and it's now my full-time job and it's like the way that I make revenue. And I've also decided to build my whole brand around like high quality video, far beyond the level that it needs to be, just the level that I can see in my head and want to keep chasing. So what I'm doing now is extremely extra and not necessary by any means. So right now, what I'm using is, let's see, how do I want to break this down? What would be, let's see, can I add a second screen? Because that would be dope. Let's see. Extra camera. And let's make it this camera. Yes, okay. So here's how I want to do this. I will put this up on the screen, and I want to do it. Is there a way to do it like, no? Can I swap this? I guess I'll do it like this. Okay, all right, this is fine. So, okay, so right now we're looking at I'm on a Sony FX3, and you can see that I've got it kind of rigged out. There's like up here at the top, this is a monitor. I don't need this. It's just so that when I'm running the camera, I don't have to pull it up on my laptop or on my screen here to see what's going on. It's so that I can just turn on the camera, make sure that I'm in frame and everything, and it's got like grid guidelines, and I can turn on false color to make sure that the setup is good and doing what I want. And then I'm surrounded by these big sound blankets, and the sound blankets are so that I don't get reverb off of the walls, because you can see like there's hard walls up here. If I look over here, there's like, concrete, the floor is concrete, like there's a lot of reflective surfaces in here. So having something to sort of absorb a lot of the echo goes a long way. Then I have lighting. I've got, these are, what are they? Amaran 150Cs. So that is it's a full color LED. They're bright, but not like, what is it doing? It's like trying to zoom in on stuff. Stop. No, don't do the focus thing. Like just look at what I'm trying to look at. Jesus. Okay. This the continuity cam has like a focus helper to try to zoom in on the person that you're talking to. So anyway, so yeah, so the Amaran 150Cs are up here, and I've got another one pointed up at the ceiling. You can, dude, stop. Look at the thing I'm trying to look at. I'm like pointing directly up at the ceiling to get it to stop doing that. So this is that's the 150C pointed up at the ceiling. And then I have another one. Don't look at Marissa. There we go. That one is it's like a rim light. So I'm basically using this one as fill so that the space looks illuminated and everything. And then this one is pointed directly at my shoulder. So I can, so if I come in here to my Link app, I can actually turn some of these off and on. Let's go full screen for a second. And what I can do is I can start turning lights off and on. So let's turn everything off, right? And so what we have now is just the overhead lights from the studio. And then if I start turning on individual pieces, so here's the hair light, and you can see that that's not doing a ton, but what it does is just kind of hits my shoulder, just kind of hits the side of my head so that I don't have a dark shadow there. Then I have in the back, I've got these accessory lights. So you can see that like the lamp and that little shelf light are controlled there. And I have the ability to, I can make them much brighter if I want, or keep them nice and low. That's actually at like 5%. Then I have fill, or sorry, this is the key light. So this is, I have these labeled wrong. This is the key light. So let me turn that one back off. This is the overhead light. And you can see what happens to the space is it just feels a little more like put together. I'm also realizing now that you can see the reflection of that light in the window, so I should fix that. But it just makes the space feel a little bit less gloomy in the background, because if I only have this and then I turn on that fill light or the hair light, then it's like, it's fine, but then this just kind of finishes it, right? So that's the general setup of what I've got going there. And then, you know, you can kind of tweak these to make them feel the right level of bright, dark, etc. Then, what else do I have going on here? Am I resume? Okay. So then I'm using the Shure SM7B. That runs into a Rodecaster Pro 2. And I don't have any other stuff in the audio chain. This actually has a great preamp for the, let's see if I start moving the mic, nobody's gonna be able to hear me. So this has a great setup for the, it's got the SM7B built in. So I didn't have to do anything special here. I'm able to just kind of run through the different processing stuff. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So got a noise gate so that you don't get like low hum from the room or anything like that. Compressor so that I don't blow the speakers in your house if I yell. I don't use an equalizer. I just kind of let it rock. I probably should mess with it, but eh. And then I've got, it's called an exciter, and this does something. Let me turn it off. And you can kind of hear the difference. It's a pretty subtle difference, I think, but I can hear it, so I keep it. And then panning, I'm not panning. High pass filters just to drop out any like low frequency rumbly stuff that doesn't really add, it just kind of makes a noise. A de-esser so that you see how it's kind of kicking in whenever I make a that's to keep it from like, that'll like whistle in weird ways if you don't have that. So that's just a preserving the listener's ears kind of thing. And that's all the pieces. So then, yeah, so I have that. I have the ability to bring in more inputs if I want them, so I can have more people in. Then the camera is running into this ATEM Mini Pro ISO. And I have the ability to bring in 4 separate inputs. Right now I'm only using the 1 because every time I set up more than that, I end up kind of overcomplicating my setup. But when I have multiple people in here, I tend to run this. This is kind of a camera switcher, so if I have multiple cameras going, I can switch angles on the fly. Got the BenQ monitor light thing here, which is pretty cool. You can kind of see it. There it is. And that's what keeps this lit up for me so that God, just stop whatever it is you're doing. It's so weird that it does that. It like finds a face and it's like, gimme. Then, yeah, I'm using the Shure, or what are these? Bose QC32, like whatever the quiet comfort over-ear headphones are. And you'll see that I've got like magic arms and stuff like all over this thing. I have a like clamp mount that runs that's where this is mounted. I've got, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. But so it's like I said, there's a lot going on in here. Probably wasn't the right thing to point my camera at there, was it? It's fine. So the setup that I have now is a lot. I actually have 2 of the Sony FX3s. I've got a handful of SM7Bs around here for when other people are in the studio. I have, you know, this whole desk. I got a freaking studio. None of this is important. What I used when I first started was my laptop and Zoom. And I would record Zoom calls. And if you go back to the very first episode to Learn with Jason in 2018, you'll see that it's quite literally like a screen recording. And my the Zoom window is like the video picture-in-picture of me and the person I'm talking to laid over my desktop as we work on something. And then slowly over time, I added, I think, AT2020 USB mic, which sounded better than the MacBook microphone. And then I think I kept kind of iterating on that sound. Ultimately landed at the SM7B. I think if it's me, if I'm giving anybody advice, I think what I would say is if you're going to upgrade your sound, don't bother until, well, okay. Let me strike that. Upgrading your sound is one of the most important things that you can do. Like, people will forgive bad picture way faster than they'll forgive bad sound. So the first thing that I would upgrade in a streaming setup would be the microphone. What I will say is it's not worth it to buy like a cheap microphone. You should get one that actually sounds good. And it doesn't have to be the Shure SM7B. They make a like, the problem with an SM7B is that it needs phantom power, it needs a preamp. It's kind of it's intended for studio use. So if you don't have all that stuff, you're not just buying an SM7B, you're buying the SM7B, and you're buying a, I don't know, what's it called? Focusrite, Scarlett, i2, I think it is. Or you're buying, one of the other similar preamps. People have lots of recommendations for these. Or you end up with something like the Rode Procaster 2, which has the preamp built in. It also has the phantom power, all the stuff that you need. So it's like a bigger investment than just the mic. You need stuff to use an SM7B. There is also, I think it's called the MV7, which is an SM7B, but it's USB powered. That is a great microphone. It sounds good. It doesn't need all the extra stuff. And it's sort of like, I would say if you don't want to go all in on your audio chain, the MV7, I think it's the MV7. Let me double check this. Sure, MV7. Yeah, that's right. So the MV7 is a $250 microphone, and it just kind of works. Like, it's built the way that it's built. You don't need anything wild for it. Whereas the SM7B, yeah, so the MV7, and then there's an MV7 Plus. I don't exactly know what the differences are. You'd have to look at it. But so the MV7 is $250. Let me put the screen back up here. MV7 is $250. The SM7B is $400. But the catch is that, so you'll say $250 for the MV7, and that's all you spend because you plug it into your computer and it works. With an SM7B, you at least need a preamp, and so there's like the Scarlett 2i2 is another $200 that you got to spend, or a Rode Procaster. Nope, not the microphone. The Procaster 2 is $700. So like it adds up fast, right? And you have to be ready, right? If you're going to get an SM7B, because it just immediately becomes $600, $1,200. It's a lot of money. But if you get that is kind of the last microphone you'll need for any type of podcasting, because there's a reason that this mic has been around forever and that they don't change the design, and that it is for vocal performance, I would say that it is probably the perfect microphone. A lot of people will argue with me that certain ones sound better or worse. They're probably right. I don't care. What I'm saying is that this microphone is a tank. It won't break. And if you get one, it's the last mic you'll ever need to buy. You can get more if you want to, if you enjoy it, but like, you don't need other things after you have the SM7B. But again, it's probably a $1,200 to $1,500 investment after you go in for the mic arms and the preamps and all the stuff that you need to make it run. MV7, pretty dang good, and none of that investment. So I would say, yeah, if you're gonna make one upgrade, I would say make it a microphone, and you can do your research on which ones you like the best. But a solid USB only option that doesn't require an audio chain is the MV7. For camera, To be completely honest, the camera on modern like iPhones and stuff is so good that it's kind of hard to justify buying a camera unless you want to do more than just shoot webcam stuff. If you don't use a smartphone and you want a good camera, like the big catch is like Sony FX3 is $4,000. Now, this is a camera that does not have a lens on it, right? And this is where this really gets out of control. So it's a $4,000 lens, or $4,000 camera, forgive me. And then you need a Sony, let's say I'm using that one's my 35 millimeter. So Sony 35 millimeter is another like $1,400. If you want to get the 24 to 70, which is another one that I use, and this one is $2,300, right? So when you start getting into camera gear, like camera gear is ridiculously expensive and it's ridiculously specialized. And if you're not using it a lot, it's probably almost certainly not worth it, right? Because it's just the difference in picture with this camera versus an iPhone 16. I don't know that a lot of people are going to pick up on the difference, and I don't know that it, especially in a streaming environment, like I'm streaming in 1080p. So we're not getting any of the resolution stuff. We're not getting any of the like extreme depth of color or other things that people will talk about with a cinema camera. On my recorded stuff, sure, but I've also learned on a lot of my recorded stuff, I'm working with a camera crew and they bring their own cameras. So I probably didn't need the cameras that I got. I probably would have been fine with one. And then whenever I do something where I need multiple cameras, I'm going to be bringing in a camera team anyways. And that production crew almost always has their own preferences. Like the Web Dev Challenge, for example, gets shot on a Canon R5C, or two of those actually. So then that's because Casey, my director of photography, that's what he shoots on. And so he brings his own setup and all. It's just like, it's much easier than making him learn a camera that he doesn't normally use and use my gear. So that's all, I guess I would say, like, unless you're going to be a camera professional, cameras are a sharply diminishing return because at the higher price points, like, they look good, but they don't look that much better unless you really, really, really know what you're doing. And I don't. So most of what I'm doing is taking a photo that it looks about as good as what a camera, like a $1,000 camera body would get me. And like, did I need the extra? Probably not, right? So at the end of the day, it sort of breaks down to hobby for me and my cameras. Am I future-proofed? Yeah, probably. Like, because apparently the FX3 is like one of the cheaper cinema cameras that is still high enough quality for like submitting to Netflix. So if I were to, for example, film something and I wanted to publish it on Netflix, I actually am shooting at the right quality that I could submit that footage, assuming I'm using all the high settings and all that stuff, which a lot of times I'm not. I'm like downgrading it to like 4K, not the full 10, but not the full, like there's capture formats that save data so that you're not making like 40 gigabyte 5-minute clips, because when you're making a skit for TikTok, like, it doesn't matter if it's 6K. but so there's a lot. There's a whole lot in there. Okay, so yeah. Just scanning back through the comments because I went on a real serious sidebar here. A book search based on plot or vague description, that sounds like something a vector database would need to do, and to be completely honest, I am not the expert for that. What do I think of A24's official website? I don't know what A24's official website looks like. It's fine. Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. I have no problems with it. Um, I feel like I have always been a victim of this where I want to make everything as big as possible. But now that I'm using this, what I'm realizing is I actually just want to be able to see stuff. And so not being able to actually see what's going on makes it hard. Um, like this is good. I just kind of want a list of things. Um, but yeah, this is this doesn't help me. Like I can only read 5 things on the screen at a time. So what I would end up doing is just continually zooming out until this is a list I can read. And this looks wonderful to me. So yeah, I think this is like a note to my past self to chill on the oversized everything. All right. Let's see. Thank you, Petipoles? Petipois? Yeah, I appreciate that. And like, I have definitely spent a lot of time on building a network that actually looks like the community, right? And the nice thing about building those types of networks is that it's only hard at the beginning because once you make friends who don't look like you, they also have lots of friends that don't look like you. And before you know it, you just have a lot of friends. And I think I think this is one of the things that gets under my skin a little bit when people say like, but I don't know anybody who's not like me. Well, yeah, you gotta go try, right? You gotta reach out. And you gotta reach out in a way that's not weird. Just remember that you're all people who have interests, and go try to find more people who have shared interests, and treat everybody like a potential friend, not like an asset or like a resource. Like people are people, and they want to be friends with other people. And if you come in acting like a person, and you talk to them about their interests, and you are chill and try to be a person who's excited to meet more people, it tends to go pretty well. If you go in with an angle, or if you go in acting like somebody is like somehow wildly different because they don't resemble what you usually see on your day to day, then yeah, it's probably going to make them feel weird, and they're probably not going to want to hang out with you. So it's like you're not like I come from Montana, right? When I grew up, like my network is about as non-diverse to start with as it possibly could have been, because I grew up in Montana, where I think when I grew up, I knew like 2 families that weren't white, because that's just the neighborhood I lived in, right? And it was super, super shocking to me to go out of a neighborhood and realize that I wasn't like, you grow up where some things are what you see every day, and some things are abstract. And the idea of diversity, the idea of people who didn't share my general experiences and beliefs, that was all abstract, because I grew up in a town small enough where I literally knew everybody. We were all living the same general life. We were all like white middle class people, and leaving that bubble was really shocking. But then I got lucky. I went to IBM. IBM is a super diverse company, and my coworkers didn't look like me. They were from all over the world, and they were just people, right? And so I went and got lunch with my coworkers, and I would hang out with my coworkers. We'd work on projects together, and it just sort of like, now they're my friends, and a lot of the folks that I worked with there I still talk to today. They've all gone on to other companies, in my personal life and stuff. You just kind of make friends, and then you make friends with their friends, and that's how networks work, right? But it is definitely like, I don't know, it always bums me out when I hear, like, I'll talk to people who run conferences, or I'll talk to people who run streams, or what, any place where you need guests, and they'll tell me things like, oh, it's just so hard to find people who aren't white dudes. And I'm like, it's really not, though. Like, just ask. They're everywhere. There are so many people in this industry that aren't white dudes. You just got to talk to them. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I mean, and again, this is like, I've been working on this space for years and years. Well, this space specifically for a year, but I've been working on Learn with Jason since 2018, and I have always, I don't have like a medium speed. I have like no attention or all attention when I'm paying attention to a project. And so, I got into this and I just like pushed on it. I was like, yeah, this is what we're doing. So again, don't need to do it like I do it. um, yeah, see, web dev shows are something that I feel like are so important. Like I love seeing content where people are good at things, right? And I'll watch anything if it's about like people being mostly nice. Like I like competition, but I don't like the cutthroat, like underhanded, U.S. reality TV competition. I like the competition where people want to be good at something, but not at the cost of like sabotaging somebody else or being mean to somebody else. So Great British Bake Off vibes, right? Like that's always what I'm after. Um, and so I love watching, that show. There's the Great Pottery Throwdown. There's a show that Nick Offerman and Amy Poehler did called Making It. There's like Nailed It on Netflix is more of a funny version. There's so many good shows that are just about people being good at stuff, and I'll watch it. Like there's a glass blowing show, there's a bartending show, there's a makeup show, there's like movie makeup, like making masks and prosthetics and stuff. I love those shows. I don't do any of that stuff, right? The fashion shows, like I'm not gonna make my own clothes. I'm not gonna make stage prosthetics. I mean, well, I would if I had the time, but I mean, there's cool stuff like that, right? And I love watching people be good at things, and seeing somebody be good at the things that I'm good at is a lot of why I go to conferences. It's why I read blog posts. It's why I want to, meet people in this industry, is because I want to see how people do it differently than me, so that I can hopefully pick up some knowledge and information. But like, I don't want to watch webinars. I don't want to watch somebody tell me why I should use the company they work for. I want to see them build something. And if they build something using the company they work for, great. I don't care. I just wanted to see you build something. So for me, there's a gap in the market. Like there's so much that we can do where I want to see people who know the things I know, who have overlap with my interests, doing stuff that is fun to watch, like trivia game shows, challenges, competitions, or even just like discussions that aren't about what tech I should use, but like this is a big driver for me with the web lunch series that I do, which I don't know if this one's been weird for me because I think that this is the best series I do, but views don't agree. And so it could be that I just haven't explained what it is. Could be that it's just not actually good, and I'm close enough to it that I think it's good. But this series is, let me put it up on the screen. So this series is like me talking to people, not about what tech they like, but about how to have a career that you're happy about, that you feel proud of, And so it's conversations about like, can you still have fun when you have to meet business deliverables? Can you live a life where you're not afraid of taking risks? Like what do you do after you've accomplished a goal that you thought was like your high water mark? Is there anything left to do? How do you find meaning once you hit the thing that you thought was like the big goal? How do you divine meaning when it's not, like if you find that money is motivating until you've paid the bills, and then it's like, I don't like, making more money isn't interesting. What do I do then? Like these are the kinds of conversations that we're having on this show, and I think to me this is like one of the most valuable things that I've ever made, because it's the kind of conversations that I used to have after you go get a drink at a conference in the bar out at the end of the night, and you have these conversations where you actually like build a better philosophy of like how to have a healthy relationship with work. But yeah, I don't know. This is definitely one of those weird ones where like I think the positioning's wrong, because everybody who watches it likes it, but not a lot of people watch it. It's gonna make me want to buy a lot of stuff. Yeah, you're welcome. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad that you're digging it, and please, like, okay. The one thing I hope people don't take away from this is like the people I'm bringing onto this show have been doing this for a long time. I am trying not to put people in a position to fail on Web Dev Challenge, because again, I don't want the American reality show drama where somebody like crashes out hard or like where people are talking like I want to talk a lot of smack, but I want it to be like loving smack. Like you give your friends crap. It's not like being mean to an enemy or whatever. But I also want this to I want to like eliminate the illusions that we can build huge, polished, amazing apps in 4 hours. And every once in a while somebody will do that. But even when they do, you can still see all the rough edges because 4 hours just isn't enough time. And I also think it's good to see that when you take somebody who is a like world-class engineer in one aspect of the field and you put them into a different scenario, they don't always, like those skills aren't 100% overlap. And if your job is typically dealing with massive amounts of legacy code, getting into a greenfield situation isn't necessarily going to be a slam dunk, even if you work at the highest levels of a FANG company. Or somebody who's got a job that is, maybe not that glamorous, but they get a ton of practice doing little stuff. Maybe they're going to shine in a way that you never would have expected. But each of us has our strengths and weaknesses, and being able to sort of showcase that is the goal. I want to see how creative people can be, how much fun we can have, and hopefully lower the intimidation factor of just taking something on. Because, like I build stuff that sucks on that show all the time. and I think that's okay. Like I've built a lot of great stuff in my career, and not every idea is going to be a good one. And sometimes 4 hours just isn't enough. Get a mini fridge? I don't need a mini fridge because I got a full-size fridge. It's over there. Yes, it is the same room that the 4-hour challenges are held in. They are, in fact, I can show you if I go. Let's see. I'll just walk around the corner. You're not going to be able to hear me very well. There it is. So this is the Web Dev Challenge set. And then that's where we do our demos over there. You can see my little kitchenette and everything over there. And then back here, this is my regular set. So you can kind of see. Let me get a little further back so you can actually see everything. And then there's all the movie magic here where I have things like this wall is fake. So that's kind of how I sort of create the magic here, is with a lot of fake walls. Actually, I've got 2 sets of these. They're called stage flats, and that's how it runs. Yeah, that Rodecaster, it's so expensive, but it is very good, right? Let's see. What's up, Ivan? How you doing? I don't know what the conversion rate is to 200K Brazilian. 200K Brazilian real is about 37,000 US dollars. Yeah, you're probably not wrong. Like I've almost certainly invested at least 30 grand into my setup over the course of the last 5 years. Yeah, I mean, just in like cameras and lenses alone, I'm in 12 grand. So yeah, like easily 30 grand and stuff, if not more. But it is super expensive and it is super not necessary. Okay, this is a good question. Let's talk about this for a second. What time is it? How much longer do I have? Oh yeah, we got plenty of time. Okay, so a few days ago, I had a task that took my entire day and I was not able to complete it. That made me feel very depressed, and for the next 2 days, continuously thinking that you're worthless and can't do anything. How do I overcome it? So, I'm going to just preface anything I say with this is from my own experience. This isn't advice or telling you exactly what you should do. Just I want to share the way that I've had to overcome this for myself, because when I was younger, I would spend a lot of time thinking about what should be true and looking at what I'd been tasked with. And then I would set kind of a list of realities. And I would say, okay, so this is my list. So today I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then tomorrow I'll do A, B, C. And I would kind of get these big, like very comprehensive timelines put together because I was organized. I was going to be so on top of things. But then, inevitably, somewhere in here, usually in the very first step, I would have realized that there was some small thing that hadn't been clarified properly, or that I needed to do extra research, or that I had an assumption that ended up not being true. And that all led to me only being able to work on X on the first day. So now my entire timeline is blown, right? And I would just feel this tremendous guilt because I was like, I wrote the timeline, I had the plan. How could I possibly have screwed this up? But it was all like, it was an expectation that only I had. And beating myself up was taking energy away from just taking the next step. And my wife is reading this book called Deep Survival. And it's not my kind of book. It's very much like people went into the woods and something bad happened and here's how they managed to not die. Those types of books give me anxiety. It's not for me. But there's this concept in there that I think ended up in Frozen 2, which is when you're in a bad situation, you don't, like, panicking doesn't help, giving up doesn't help, running through the woulda, shoulda, couldas doesn't help. The only thing you can do is do the next right thing. And so what that translates to in work capacity, in my ability to learn, my ability to complete things, is I think a lot about what can I control, right? And when I'm writing a plan, I can control the what I work on first. I can't exactly control how long I work on that thing in most cases, because the completion is when it meets the criteria that have been set, not when I've worked on it for 4 hours. So in a lot of cases, what'll end up happening is I will look at my list of things to do, and my instinct is to start slotting things into days. And I've had to fight really hard against that, because all I can do is one more step. If I give myself a stack of like hypotheticals, there's only so much I can do before I'm very much just playing D&D with myself and guessing what happens after. I'm like imagining what would happen if I get this done and then I got that done and then I got that done. Wouldn't it be wonderful? The reality is I can only control what I work on next, and I can control whether or not I focus on it. So my next right thing is choosing one thing that I can accomplish, that I understand all of the pieces for. And I think that that's an important, it's an important distinction to think about what you can control even in your task setting. If somebody says build a website, you can't just write down build website, because there's all these things that have to happen. Do you have a design? Do you have a clear understanding of the requirements? Do you have content? Do you need to write content? Does the client or your boss, do they have a clear information architecture? Have they decided what the most important thing is on the page? Like, are you responsible for those decisions? There's all these questions that have to be answered. So when I start writing down a list, if somebody says, hey, can you build the new website? The next thing I can do is clarify the scope. So I'm not going to write down build website. I'm going to write down clarify website scope. And that's the next right thing. I can do that part. Once I understand the scope, then I know maybe I've got to build out a pricing page. I've got to build out. So pricing page. What's the next right thing on a pricing page? Get the pricing data, or get it the most high fidelity pricing information I can have, so that the thing I'm building is close to using real data. Once I have the pricing data, then I can say build out the pricing table. Because if I build out pricing table on fake information that I made up that has no root in the product, it's going to end up creating extra work, and then I'm going to feel like I failed, when really I did things out of order, right? You always end up planning. It's just your choice whether you plan after you've already done a bunch of work. And I think that uh, the reframing of, it's not like one big chunk. The task is the next thing that you can see to the end of. And if you don't have information, the next step is getting information, not writing code. And if you're writing code, you need to know where the stopping points are. What are the individual outcomes that you need to accomplish? Not like, I'm going to write code until this site is done, but okay, well, we need to have this list, this page, this opt-in form, this purchase form, whatever those things are. Each one of those is a task with an outcome that you can control and test and verify and turn in for review. And when you start to build things that way, what I've found is that if I say, today I'm working on getting all the information I need to build this website, and it happens fast, then suddenly I'm ahead of schedule. Whereas if I said, today I'm going to build the website, and then I gather all the information and make a solid inroad into working on it, I then feel like I failed because I said I was going to build the website, and I instead just made really solid progress on the website. But that really solid progress feels bad depending on how I framed it, or it feels great if I framed it in a different way. And the subtlety of that is sort of hard to communicate because it feels like just moving goalposts. But I think what it is for me is understanding that all of the work that we do is complicated. And when you get into complicated work, making it one big thing tends to paper over how complicated it is. And to me, it's sort of like when somebody says, well, design is just making it pretty, right? No, there are a million steps that have to go into that. When somebody says, well, you're just taking a design and making it work, right? No, there's a lot more that goes into development than taking a design and making it work. Like, there's so many little things and little disciplines that happen, and it's all stuff that you either need to learn or get somebody to handle for you. And by breaking it down into those types of steps where you understand that I have a clear question and there's a clear outcome, you can stack up a lot of those little outcomes in a day, and it feels good. I made 15 steps toward my goal, versus saying my goal is to complete the entire project, and that's going to take multiple days. So every day that you don't finish it feels like a failure. I'm not done yet, right? That really helped me to not feel like I was wallowing in guilt all the time. And I think that it's really important as a professional to try to find the way that working. Let me rephrase this. As a professional, there is very little value in regret. And so in most aspects of my life, I'm trying to minimize regret. And the ways that I do that are very, very greatly depending on the situation. But when it comes to work itself, I'm trying not to put myself in situations where I look at it and go, I should have thought of that, right? So I'm trying to do that thinking up front. And I'm also trying not to, am I getting into hypotheticals built on hypotheticals? And if that's the case, then I just write like too much unknown information. We need to understand this, and then we need another planning session. Because if I am going into a website and they say, we need you to build a new website for the business. And I'm like, what's the business? They're like, we're not sure yet. I'm like, I'm not going to do any work until we understand what the business is, right? And it's usually not quite that vague, but you will get projects where they'll say something like, yeah, can you build out this new feature? And you're like, okay, who's the user? And they're like, we haven't decided yet. There's a lot you need to know before you can start building a feature if the user might change. Right? Because if you build it for a developer, it's going to be very different than if you build it for somebody who is, at a retirement home and doesn't have great eyesight and is really uncomfortable with lots of buttons, right? Two very different users, and it could be like, yeah, build an app for controlling a TV. Both users could be there, a power user and a much less comfortable with technology user. And if you don't know which one of them you're building for, you are absolutely going to waste time and feel like a failure if you have to throw away a bunch of code that you wrote. But the problem wasn't that you wrote bad code. The problem was that you started working without information. So breaking down tasks and feeling like you have a clear sign of what is actually expected of you, I think that's really important. And then also not making future promises on deadlines. Like, you can only promise the next deadline. And if there are things that have tight deadlines, start negotiating with the people who are imposing those deadlines. Because if I have, like, if I'll give you a very real example. I was at the company where I was an executive. It's not worth it to. There's no value in throwing names around because it's not really relevant to the story. But I was an executive, and I was in a leadership meeting, and I remember having this conversation where everybody was talking about what was important, right? And every executive, every leader on the team had a list of like 3 or 4 things that they were like, these are the most important projects. Like, great. There are 10 of us. That's 40 projects. Every one of these projects touches the front end, like the marketing front end team. There are 3 of them. When do you need this done by? And everybody was like, end of quarter. Like, cool. We're 3 weeks into the quarter. That's 9 weeks. We're not getting 40 things done in 9 weeks. And if we tell them that they need to get 40 things done in 9 weeks, every single one of us is going to be disappointed, and it's probably going to end up rolling over on this front end team who definitely doesn't deserve it. So instead, what we did was we got out a whiteboard and we wrote down all of our ideas, and I put each of the people on the team, and I wrote out blocks that were Post-it size for their capacity. And each of them had like 3 or 4. That was kind of where we landed on, was like enough, right? And so I said, okay, what goes in this first box? And everybody wanted their thing. So we get the thing in the first box. And I was like, okay, what goes in the second box? We keep going. Now we're out of boxes, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't need to get done. I'm like, okay, is this thing, I'm holding up a project, is this thing more important than any of the things that are in the boxes now? And everybody would look, and somebody would say, well, I think it's more important than X. And then the person who owned X would then start like saying like, well, but I don't know because of this and that. And ultimately they would agree, you're right, this one's probably more important, and it would swap. And so we'd put X on a list of once other things are done, right? And suddenly what happened was we had planned for our active capacity, and all of the other things that needed to be done, they were considered important, but they weren't urgent anymore. They were to be done once the other things were done. So we could give that front-end marketing team that was drowning permission to not think about that stuff. It wasn't like they weren't responsible for keeping track of that. The leadership teams were. The leadership teams were responsible for driving the one result that they were supposed to get, which was the thing on the sticky note. And when that thing was done, a square opened up and they got to put the next thing in the square, right? This is so hard to do because all of us want to do every single thing all the time. And when we get into groups, it's even harder because our priorities aren't always exactly the same. And so different people will think that something is the most important thing. But when you're prioritizing, it's really important to be realistic about what you can actually handle. If you have 8 hours in a day, and you know that when you sit down at a computer, you've got about 4 to 6 hours before you kind of can't focus anymore and you just find yourself scrolling Twitter, then you've probably got, assume a 90-minute working block between breaks. You got 4 working blocks. What can you do in 90 minutes, right? Fill out 4 90-minute blocks in your day. And when you're out of stuff, that's as much as you can plan. Like when you get to the end of the day, assess what happened. See how good you were at your estimates. Did you get all 4 done? Hell yeah, that rocks. Set one up for tomorrow and do the same thing. You're going to get everything done in no time. If you got way more done than you thought, all right, let's maybe get a little more aggressive with our estimates. What can we do tomorrow in these 4 blocks? If you were way off and you only got one of the things done, hey, that's also okay. Let's adjust though. Let's make sure that tomorrow we're not as aggressive in our estimates and we only put one thing across these blocks and we get it done. Like set one goal, hit that goal, and then take the win, and tomorrow estimate again, right? And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build momentum, the chain of success, right? And if you estimate properly so that you always hit things, like you hit the things you said you were going to do, and you don't have tons of time left over in your day. Like if you're going to put 6 hours of productive work in, let's say that that's what we're all going to agree to. 6 hours of productive work, you should do 6 hours of productive work. So how close to that estimate can you get, right? If you're going way over and you find yourself working into the night, you estimated wrong. Try again. If you find yourself done in 3 hours, you estimated wrong. Try again. Try to hit the goal for like the amount of time that you have to be productive. And if you consistently do that, then you will, first of all, become much more confident in your estimates because you'll be doing this every single day. You're looking at a pile of work and you're deciding for yourself how much of it you can do. And second, you're going to feel good because you're always hitting your goals, right? You can, and you know that if you're not going to do it today, that's fine. You're going to do it later, but it's been prioritized. You know that these are the most important things and you're working on them and you're getting them done. So that it really changes the relationship with work. And this has been really big for me is recognizing that, like, if I look at my to-do list, my to-do list, all these things, I know I can't do all this today, right? But I know it needs to get done. So instead, I look through and I find the things that are the most important and I grab those. And those most important things, most time sensitive, most beneficial, most whatever, those are the things that get knocked off the list. Everything else will wait until those things are done. And if I'm trying to focus on all of it, it's not happening. Like I'm going to have problems. I'm going to get overwhelmed. I'm going to get depressed. I'm going to get stressed. And then it's sort of this compounding problem, because if I get overwhelmed and then because I'm overwhelmed, I don't work. And then because I don't work, the work is piling up. And because the work is piling up, I'm more overwhelmed. And now I'm depressed. And now I'm eating my feelings and not getting any work done. Like now I'm not sleeping. So now because I'm overtired, that's causing me to not be able to focus as well. Like it is a horrible negative cycle to get stuck in, and definitely not one that I would wish on anybody, because it's really, really, really hard, right? Like this is challenging stuff. And so from my perspective, right, I think the major challenge here is to be, I don't know, I'm gonna start repeating myself. Like, be clear about what you're trying to get done. Make sure you have all the information before you agree to it. Make sure that it's broken down to the next step, not the entire project. And then just practice estimating and be really clear about like how far into the future you can accurately estimate. I would wager it's a day, maybe a week. And don't build timelines that aren't flexible. The timeline should be the next thing has a hard deadline. Everything else is ballparked, and it will shift. You know it's going to shift, and that way you don't have to feel guilty when it does. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Lucas, because I have not been paying enough attention to the chat, but thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. What's up, American? Yeah, sound is definitely the thing. Is that a monocle on it? Yes, it is. It is a rabbit with a monocle. I love that little thing. What stack am I using for this one? I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Typically, I'm reaching for like Astro, but I'm not sure what we're talking about. Have we explored local first software? Not a ton. Like, I know the general idea, and I guess I need to talk to somebody who's like really into this, because I'm not sure how it's different from other things that we've done in the past. Like I haven't been able to figure out yet if local first is if it's a like a genuine shift in the stack, or if it's a marketing term for a pattern that's been around, that we're trying to popularize, right? And that's I truly don't know that. Let's see. Yeah, right. The SM7B is definitely a challenge. Like people will get things like a cloud lifter. People don't like the cloud lifter. That's another reason to do the Roadcaster, is because it actually has the amount of, like, it's strong enough preamps. It's got clean input, and it's all just sort of built in, so you don't have to deal with it. The Rode NTG4 Plus is also very good. Yeah, the FET heads. Yes, exactly. Like, yeah, exactly. People are. There are a million ways that you can do it. I don't know that there's, like, if you get on YouTube and start looking into this, there's 100,000 answers. Many of them are very good. But yeah, it is definitely tricky. Hard to record yourself with the good camera on the smartphone when you can't see yourself. That is also very true. There are ways to solve that. One of the ways that I've seen that is my favorite, like, low budget hack is just put a mirror behind it. I thought that was brilliant. But yeah, lots and lots of ways that you can do it. best browser for developers. I don't know, whatever one makes you productive. I use Arc. I know that Arc had a leak, but I still don't. I don't know. It's fine. What's up, Aditi? How you doing? Andrew Wong's Four Producers One Sample rocks. That was a big influence for the original version of Web Dev Challenge, which is on. It's actually on my channel as four web devs build the same app idea. That was directly inspired by Andrew Wong, who was himself inspired by Jessica Kolbasi, who did a four photographers shoot the same model. Yeah, the Pottery Show rules. Vinny, you will never be on this show. No, I'm kidding. You might be. Who knows? Invite me on. I won't do that. What are the dev blogs I read on the regular? I read web.dev. That one is good for keeping up on what's happening in the... I guess I should probably throw links for these, huh? Web.dev is good. It's the, like, Adam Argyle and Una Kravitz and Brahmas and stuff. They're talking about web standards, and that is great. Good to know what's going on. Other ones that I read, I don't read a lot of other ones consistently. Like I'm kind of watching for what other people are doing, but I don't know. Have I ever thought of doing spin-off episodes of Web Dev Challenge where you go in depth on the most popular, interesting projects developed on the show? I haven't. That's a good idea. I am working on, we did demos for not the most recent hackathon, but the one before. And we're going to release demos from the folks who participated in the hackathon. I'm also going to email everybody who participated in the most recent hackathon to talk about I need to talk to everybody about like rewards and getting mailing addresses and stuff, but also to try to book a demo call so that we can keep doing that. Doing a deep dive on the projects though would be really fun. That is an interesting idea. What do I do for a living beside YouTube content? I help other companies make video content, mostly in the dev tool space. And I do a lot of like, well, to be completely honest, right now what I do for a living is Web Dev Challenge. I'm trying to get some of my eggs out of that basket because while I hope that the show continues to be popular and that people want to watch it forever, content usually has a shelf life, and so I don't know how much longer that format will continue to be as popular as it is. So I want to make sure that I've got other formats going. I do consulting with companies. I help them with event planning. I help them with DevRel strategy. I do like developer experience reviews. Where I'll use a tool and give companies feedback on it. But generally speaking, like I make my money through this now. This is my job. Let's see. What do we got? Web Dev Challenge inspires me how positive and excited every senior developer is rather than being scared. So I will say I am selecting specifically for people who are more on the like fun and positive side, because it's not fun to there's enough negativity out there. It's really easy to focus in this industry on what people do wrong, what people are not taking care of, what's being ignored, what's being missed. And I feel like that starts to set up the mindset of like, it's all bad and it'll never be good, and so why bother? And so for me, it's very important that the content that I'm making is focused more on what is possible and what we are doing and what's fun and what's exciting. Because, I come from music and being in a touring band, and I made the websites because there was no one else to make the website for us. We were broke, we couldn't hire anybody, so somebody had to figure it out, and I had a computer, so I dove in, right? And when I built it, I was like, that was kind of neat. Let me do it again. And so I rebuilt the site, and I rebuilt the site. I probably rebuilt that site 10, 15 times over the course of the band's lifespan, because I kept learning something new, and I was like, dang, that's cool. And I've just sort of realized that I don't know where, I mean, I guess I blame my parents, my mom and my dad for teaching me how to enjoy learning, but I really like learning new stuff. And every time I learn something new, there's that sense of like, that was neat. I did something that I couldn't do 20 minutes ago, right? And that I love that feeling. And I think that feeling can get us through so many hard times because it's just fun as a community to watch yourself do something that you didn't think you were capable of doing. Um, and I find that across a lot of things. Like it's fun to do that with physical activities. Like I've been learning to play pickleball, right? And like every time I do something with in pickleball where I return a shot, I somebody hit it hard and I was able to actually like react in time to return it. That kind of stuff is really, really cool. It feels good when I'm in the gym and I lift more weight than I lifted before. That feels really good. I feel really proud of myself. And it's the same in work. Like if I'm learning a new language, if I'm learning how to have a different kind of meeting, I'm learning how to sell something, I'm learning how to explain something. If I do it and I see the light bulb come on in somebody's eyes, or I see somebody change their mind from like, we'll never do anything like that to actually, you know what, let's talk about this because it sounds fun. Any of those things, right? It is so much fun to realize that you've grown, that you've changed, that you've added a new skill to your bag, right? That feels amazing, and finding people who share that and are just out to have a good time, and they're not worried about whether they're the best. They're just worried about whether they're better than they were yesterday. That's the community that I love, and that's the community that I want to be a part of. And the best way that I've ever found to build a community is to just, whenever you find somebody that's like that, put them on a pedestal, show everybody what it's like, and give a lot of airtime to the things that you want to see more of, and then the people who like that show up. And you learn behavior from the people who are prominent in the community. So if you've got a community that is full of people who are loudly enjoying themselves and not worried about whether they're doing it right and are just here to learn and get better, and they want to see if they can do more today than they could do yesterday, then people start to feel that that's normal, that that's what they should be doing, and that that's acceptable and encouraged behavior. And I think that really builds a community that's just so much different, so much more capable than a community that's worried about being wrong, that's worried about being corrected or being told why they're not as smart as somebody else, or any of those sorts of things. Like, this is not a computer science is not real science, right? Like there's ways that the computer will or won't work, but the manner in which we get it to do that is not. It is what it is. Like there are better and worse ways, but there's no right or wrong way, right? And the whole trick is just to learn and to grow and to keep doing more, and to find people who enjoy that the same way. What's up, Kurt? It's good to see you. Yeah, thanks. The setup has been going for quite a while, and it's starting to feel like it's coming together. Yeah, I think linking is there's definitely some issues with links in YouTube these days. Um, Flying through chats. Thank you. This is the Moonlander keyboard. When do I know I can apply, especially considering I would need some considerations, would likely need to work from home? The thing about jobs is that if you can do the work, you're ready for the work, right? And so I think as long as you apply and you're honest about what you're doing, and I think honest is a loaded term, and I saw you mention autism, so I'm gonna be careful about how I say this. Honest doesn't mean volunteer a bunch of things you can't do. What it means is be clear about what you can do, and I think what that communicates is, when you have a conversation, if you're talking to somebody about an entry level role, my filter for an entry level role isn't can this person do everything. My filter is actually, is this person actively engaged in learning? And when I tell them something, you don't have to tell them twice, right? Like if they are trying to learn and they come and ask you how a thing works and you tell them, they will then internalize that and go use it so that it doesn't become a question that you get every week. Like there's nothing more frustrating than when you work with somebody and you can tell they're actively refusing to learn because they ask you the same question over and over and over again. That what I'm looking for in an entry level engineer is somebody who will learn and be excited and be engaged and ask good questions once or twice, right? Like once you've internalized it, it stays internalized, and you then use that knowledge to improve the way that you get work done and reduce the number of questions you need to ask. And you can see that potential in people. You know, there are people who I met 2 years ago who were entry level, and I could tell that that's what kind of person they were, and they're senior engineers now. And we can debate about title inflation all we want, but the fact of the matter is, I've seen their work, and they are light years better than they were 2 years ago, and it's because they just apply that constant curiosity and good questions and retention of new knowledge. So yeah, you're ready if you can do the work. If you can build something for the web, go apply for jobs where you build for the web, and then just be clear about what you know and what you'll learn. And if they have a job description that says, you know, like, you need 5 years of experience, don't apply for that job. But if they've got a junior role or an entry level role, then apply. Show them what you can do. Show them your portfolio. And if they ask other questions about other things, you can say, I haven't done that before, but I'm confident that I can learn it, and I'm excited to learn it. And I think that to me that's a good way to approach that. Let's see. Brainstorm an app idea and break it down so I have a blueprint to use to build it. So this is a good question, because when you have an idea, typically what ends up happening is, for me at least, I know what I want the outcome to be, and then when I start actually breaking it down, I get sort of just overwhelmed or like sort of disillusioned with it. I'm like, this idea isn't as good as I thought. So I think the really important thing for me is always scoping an idea down to the key outcome that somebody would pay for. Like, if you think about what, let me try to think of a good one. Let's say 8 Sleep. All right, 8 Sleep is an app that plugs into your mattress, and it tells you whether or not you slept properly, right? That is a sort of terrible idea, but it's also a great idea, and a lot of people are willing to pay for it. And I think that if you look at what they did, they basically scoped it down, and they said, like, all right, what we're going to sell at first is a dashboard, and that's good enough, right? And like, I'm sure they have a bunch of ideas that aren't the idea that is shipped. And I think a lot of companies do the same thing. You know, like, you will always see miles ahead of where you are right now. You know, it's just the nature of having ideas. And so when you have an idea that you think is good enough to pursue, breaking it down to, like, what is the thing, if the intention is to make money, what is the thing that somebody would pay for, and why would they pay for it? And if you can get a clear understanding of that particular thing, then you just work backwards from that outcome. So if the outcome is, I think somebody would pay for, I don't know, advice about, I think somebody would pay for 3D printer schematics designed by, I don't know, expert woodworkers, whatever it is. Like, you think somebody will pay $5 a month for that. So you then have to work backwards. Well, what do I need? I have to be able to deliver the files. I have to be able to procure those. I have to be able to give people the ability to pay, to search for them, to bookmark the ones they like, to add them to their cart, to, you know, whatever it is, access the ones they paid for. And you start breaking down those steps, and now you've kind of got, like, all right, here's the scope of this project. In order to do this thing, I need to have a product listing. I need to have a way for people to upload their designs. I need to have a way for people to bookmark and add to cart and pay. I need a dashboard for people to review their work. There's all this stuff that people are going to need. And once you have a clear understanding of what all those requirements are, then you can figure out, what's your tech stack? What tool best accomplishes all of these things? What am I going to use third-party stuff? I'm going to build it myself. so on and so forth. And then you start to actually have like a plan, right? And then if if you're any good at estimating, you're going to know, okay, this is like, I can build this in a couple of weeks, or oh, this is going to be years worth of work. And if what you're going to charge at the end is like, I get 5% of $5 per 3D design sold, is it worth it, right? Then you can start kind of actually running the numbers and deciding like, how many of these do I actually need to sell before I would make any real money? And if the hours worked, mean that you're going to be working for 15 cents an hour for the next 2 years before you turn a real profit, maybe it's not an idea that you do for a side project, right? Like maybe it's something that you do for learning, but not for revenue. But so, and I don't know if you were even thinking about the business side of this, and maybe you don't need to. Like if it's just for fun, break it down into its component parts and understand what the specific outcomes are. Like the way that a UX designer would do this is they'll typically think of who is the customer, so like the persona, or in the case of like a billing app, you have multiple personas. You've got the person getting paid, the person paying, and maybe like approvers or so on and so forth. But then once you have your personas, then you have to go through the journeys. What does each of these personas do in the app? What are the things they need to accomplish, and why are they here, and what would make them happy? So in the case of a billing app, a payee wants to upload an invoice and check the status of it to make sure they're going to get paid. The payer wants to be able to receive invoices, make sure that they can review them, make sure that they can, do whatever tax compliance and stuff they need to do. And then like an approver needs to see a list of invoices, and maybe it's tied to the projects that are that they need to approve, whatever it is. Those then become your actual, that's your list of things to build. And if you can take each of those and sort of scope it out, and maybe what you decide is to start, you're not going to worry about approvers. You're going to go for small businesses because you want a business where the payer is also the approver. So you've only got two personas and two workflows you need to work through. And that'll help you scope down and decide that, you know what, that third persona is going to add a lot of complexity, and I don't think I'm going to get big enough clients right out of the gate to make that worth it. So I'm going to leave that out for now and just work on these two. And so that's how I approach it. That's how I've tended to think about it, and it tends to help. Let's see. Plan enough that you can proceed. Yes, exactly that. Not so much that you either don't start or have things completely go off the rails. Yes, 1,000%. Do I like progressive web apps? I do indeed. How do we approach the job market with the rise of AI? So, okay, my take is that AI is not going to replace anything except the most rudimentary, like data entry style of programming. Like if all you do in your job is write code, and you're not thinking, you're not reasoning, you're not talking to other people, then sure, maybe AI will take your job. But there aren't very many jobs like that. Like, you almost certainly need to learn how things work, talk to other teams, think about how a feature fits into existing features. And what AI does is it provides you tools for accomplishing well-defined tasks. Most of programming is defining tasks, right? You still need to be able to understand the system and provide the context to get the machine to do a well-defined task. You can't just set down a person who has no software development experience at a legacy app and say add a new feature, and they go, okay, computer, make this app change the dashboard from what it did before to what I want it to do now. They are not going to get good results, right? Like, and maybe eventually someday far in the future I'll be proven wrong, but for the time being, the AI tools for coding will let somebody MVP a mostly working version of a greenfield app. It doesn't build complex apps. It doesn't do a good job of handling the context of like how a new feature fits into the broader scope of the rest of the business, because it's just too much context to provide. And for someone to use that tool well, they need to be able to provide all that context and review the code that comes out to make sure that it's not doing something that's going to interfere with other parts of the business. So in the AI era, what I would recommend for most developers is to think about AI as a tool. It's similar to something like TypeScript or Vite or ESLint. You get, because like when we got ESLint and TypeScript and stuff, suddenly we have IntelliSense where you can autocomplete your objects, right? Well, now with AI, you can autocomplete a for loop. It doesn't really take away the thinking. And if you try to let it take away the thinking, it might work for a while, but when it becomes legacy code, it's, we're seeing the studies of people who try to just YOLO ship a bunch of AI code into production. It's slowing people down if they use it like that. If you use it as an augment to your own programming knowledge, it will speed you up. Allegedly, I don't actually use it, but the people I know who do use it, they swear if you treat it like a very advanced autocomplete, then it's a great way to use this stuff. If you treat it as a way to get past some toil that you don't want to do, like writing a complicated map reduce, cool, do it. But I think it's just a matter of being clear that what is happening here is not that the computers are becoming capable programmers. The computers are very good pattern matchers, and the people still need to be there to provide context and guidance and to think through the way that this will impact all of the other people that work at the company. Like, AI is not replacing anything complex yet. And my guess is it probably won't for a reasonable amount of time. Let's see here. Beginning web developer, how do you make your web page resize itself based on the size of the browser? So what you're looking for there is what is called a media query. Let's see, I think we can just do this now. Yes. So what this will let you do is you can check the size of the browser and make different rules based on it. So here, like if the browser is 900 pixels wide, then you can set a different set of rules. Another way that you can do that is by using relative width. So you can do things like set it to be 90% of the width as opposed to being 900 pixels, which means it will flex. And you just have to think through in your typography, making sure that that's going to work. And honestly, the way that most of us do it is we build and then we get into our browser and we just start doing this to make sure that it all looks right at the right sizes. And if we find a spot where it looks weird, we get back in there and we add more rules. So it's definitely experimentation, but media queries and relative widths like percentages or viewport widths or you'll have to kind of dig into what all of those are, but that is going to help you a lot. How did I build up the courage to leave Netlify and step into my own thing full time? I did the thing on the side until it was making enough money that I felt confident that if I went full time on it, I could replace the rest of the income that I was losing by leaving Netlify. I had figured out how to replace I'd replaced about 2/3 of my income with Learn with Jason before I put in my notice at Netlify. And now granted, it was still hard because like I was at Netlify and I was making my income and then I was building up side income through Learn with Jason. So when I left Netlify, it wasn't like I just immediately made all this money. I lost my whole Netlify income that I had been using in addition to my Learn with Jason income. So I had to not just build up like back to the Learn with Jason, but if I wanted to get back to the level of comfort that I was at, I needed to go beyond what I was making at Netlify with Learn with Jason. Which has been a whole thing, right? Like but at the end of the day, I sat down and I thought to myself, like, what happens if I try this and it fails? I currently, my wife was working in tech at the time. I don't have kids. The only debt we have is a mortgage. So we kind of sat down and thought about it. And we're like, all right, what goes wrong? Like, if this doesn't work, what goes wrong? And her job would allow us to continue paying the mortgage. We'd have to do big lifestyle cuts if I lost my income, but like we could pay the mortgage and that was okay. So we worked out that like if this all goes completely wrong and I fail and we get zero income from Learn with Jason, like all my existing stuff dries up and I can't get more, then we can pay the mortgage long enough for me to go apply to other jobs. And the bet that I took is that I am employable enough that if I decide that Learn with Jason isn't working, I could say that I was looking for work and I would be able to find it within 6 months. That's the bet that I'm making. And the more I see of the market right now, the more I'm realizing that bet may have been a bit overconfident. But fortunately, because of like, and I also, I mean, I think it's important to clarify, I moved into a space that I gotta go. I moved into a space that I am very, very confident in. Like I moved into something adjacent to what I was doing at Netlify. I was actively talking to people who would become my customers every single day in that role and hearing what their struggles were. So I was coming into something where like I had validated this with my users over and over and over again that this was a pain point. So when I left, I wasn't leaving and saying, okay, now what do I do? I was leaving and I emailed a ton of people and I said, okay, today's the day, I'm going solo. I want to help companies make better video. We've talked about this before. Are you interested? And most of them said no, but a few of them said yes, and it turned into work. And that work led to other people seeing what I was doing, and then they wanted it. And you know, when I got Web Dev Challenge out, just about every company I know has reached out and said, like, how do we get involved? Which has been fantastic. I mean, I love it. It makes me so happy because the bet that I made was the right bet for the time. But yeah, the confidence came from, like, I knew the market, I knew what I was trying to do, I knew exactly the problem I was trying to solve, I knew how I was going to solve it. The only thing that it was missing was me having enough attention to focus on it full time. So that was what gave me the confidence. Let's see. Would it be more financially feasible to fly folks out of the US in for Web Dev Challenge? Probably it would be more financially feasible to fly people in. The biggest reason I haven't so far is that it I would want to give people enough time to get through their jet lag, which adds a significant amount of time expense for them. And I don't, like right now, the way that you get paid if you do the Web Dev Challenge is I pay for your trip. So I pay for the airfare, I pay for the hotel, pay for meals, and I try to make it like the best little like fun work project vacation that you could do. Like, but I don't pay, there's not like a cash payment. If I add people from overseas, I would probably be asking them to come in 2 days early so that they would have time to arrive, get over their jet lag, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's becoming like a 5-day trip for them. I feel like I would need to have more budget to be able to pay like cash stipends to developers if they're gonna take that much time off work. So that's one of the reasons that I haven't done it. Going on the road is really interesting, and I am working on a couple things in that direction. The major challenge there is either I have to fly my whole crew out that knows how the show works, or I have to get with a new crew that has never done this show before and then make sure that it runs the same way and feels the same. So that complication is high and something that I'm trying to work through. But yeah, it's definitely on my mind, and I'm trying to make it work. Scrolling through here just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh boy, let's see. Just digging into the questions here. All right. So, thank you, Miko. I'm glad you're here as well. And with that, I gotta jet, y'all, because my tattoo appointment starts in 19 minutes, and I still gotta get over there. So, thank you all very much for hanging out. Come back on Thursday because speaking of, we were talking about AI and like how AI is not going to solve all of our problems and take our jobs. Lori Voss is over at Olama and is going to teach us how to get AI to do chores, which is what I think is the right use for Olama or for LLMs and AI in general. I think that one's going to be really good. I'm really interested. Lori's been giving me a lot of good ideas, and I think he's got a very interesting way of looking at this stuff that I think is going to be fascinating for y'all. Just whatever. Thanks all for hanging out. Hit the like button on things. Do the subscription thing. Share a episode of Web Lunch. on your channel to say thanks if you enjoyed today. Go leave a comment somewhere on YouTube so the algorithm knows that you're into my stuff. And with all that, thank you all so much for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, y'all.